The guys at the gym thought it was funny mocking the black woman lifting weights, calling her weak, laughing behind her back. But when they take it too far and try to intimidate her, they have no idea who they're messing with. Because she's not just any gym goer, she's a former Navy SEAL. And in a matter of seconds, they're about to learn that the hard way. Jordan Hayes had always believed in discipline, strength, and pushing limits. She wasn't just fit, she was trained for war. As a former Navy SEAL, she had spent years in some of the most grueling conditions on Earth, surviving, fighting, and winning. But now, back in civilian life, all she wanted was a quiet workout at her local gym. No attention, no trouble, just her and the weights. But that day, a group of arrogant gym bros decided she didn't belong. And when they started harassing her, mocking her, and trying to intimidate her, they had no idea who they were messing with. Because Jordan wasn't just any woman. She was deadlier than all of them combined. And today, they were about to find that out. Before we go any further, subscribe to the channel and comment below where you are watching from. The gym was alive with the usual energy, the rhythmic clang of weights, the low hum of treadmills, the occasional grunt from men lifting heavy to impress anyone who cared to watch. Jordan Hayes had seen it all before. She wasn't here for attention. She wasn't here to prove anything. She was here for one reason only: to train. With her hoodie pulled over her head, earbuds in, and a water bottle in hand, she moved with purpose, her mind already set on her routine. She had been coming here for months, but today, something felt different. She could feel it before she even started her warm-up, a shift in the atmosphere. It wasn't just the usual stares she had grown used to. No, today, it felt like a challenge was waiting for her. And she was right. Because across the room, a group of 4 men were watching her, whispering, laughing, nudging each other like kids in high school. They had no idea who she was. They had no idea what she was capable of. And today, they were about to make the biggest mistake of their lives. She felt their eyes on her the moment she stepped onto the gym floor. Not the usual glances people exchanged in public spaces. This was different. This was the kind of stare that came with judgment. She walked past the row of benches, heading toward the free weights section, when she caught the first snicker. She actually thinks she can lift? A low chuckle followed. Maybe she's lost? This isn't the yoga room. She didn't react. Not yet. She had learned long ago that silence was the most powerful weapon. Let them talk. Let them think whatever they wanted. But the moment they crossed the line, she would remind them exactly why she never lost a fight. Jordan grabbed a pair of 40-pound dumbbells and stepped toward the mirror. She had barely finished her first set when one of them walked up behind her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had the self-important swagger of a man who had never been told no. He stood directly in her reflection, blocking her view. A classic intimidation move. Jordan set the dumbbells down and slowly looked up. "You're in my way," she said, her tone calm but firm. The man smirked. "Oh, am I? I thought you were done. You know, most girls don't really need the heavy weights." She held his gaze. "Move." For a split second, his smirk flickered. But then, one of his friends called out from behind. "Hey bro, don't scare her off. We need entertainment." Laughter erupted from their corner. Jordan exhaled slowly. She had fought trained killers in war zones. She had endured the harshest training on the planet. And now, she was expected to be intimidated by a bunch of gym rats with fragile egos? She turned her back to him, picked up her weights, and continued her set. "That's what I thought," he muttered, walking away. She didn't react. Not yet. But in the back of her mind, she had already decided. If they pushed her further, she wasn't going to hold back. After finishing her dumbbell presses, she made her way toward the squat rack. She loaded up her weights and positioned herself under the bar. But just as she was about to start, one of them stepped in front of her. The same guy from before. His arms were crossed over his chest, a fake look of concern on his face. "Careful, sweetheart," he said mockingly. "You sure you can handle that much weight?" His friends snickered behind him. "Maybe we should take some of those plates off. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself." That was it. That was the moment they crossed the line. Jordan stood up straight, her muscles tense, her patience gone. She locked eyes with the man in front of her and, for the first time, she smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile a wolf gives before tearing apart its prey. She grabbed the bar loaded with more weight than any of them had lifted that day. And in one fluid motion, she stepped back and sank into a perfect squat. The room went silent. When she stood back up, her voice was calm but sharp as a blade. "That answer your question?" The man's smirk vanished. But Jordan wasn't done. She turned toward his group. "Who's next?" They had no response. No cocky comebacks. No laughter. Because for the first time since this started, they realized something. They hadn't been harassing a regular woman. They had been picking a fight with someone who could break them in seconds. And Jordan saw it in their eyes. Fear. But before she could relish the moment, one of them, angry, embarrassed, made a fatal mistake. "Yeah, well, I bet you still punch like a girl." The words had barely left his mouth before he stepped forward and shoved her shoulder. It wasn't a full-force attack, but it was enough. Enough to cross the line from mockery to a physical threat. And in that moment, Jordan knew. They wanted to see what she could do? Fine. She'd show them. And what happened next would be something none of them would ever forget. The moment his hand made contact with her shoulder, Jordan knew one thing. It was over for him. For a split second, the gym went dead silent. Everyone had been watching the trainers, the staff, the other gym members. They had seen the bullying. They had heard the mocking comments. And now, they had just witnessed the final mistake. Jordan slowly turned her head toward the man who shoved her. Her expression completely unreadable. The guide, all muscular, confident just seconds ago, is now frozen in place. His hand was still raised slightly, as if he wasn't even sure what he had just done. His friends, who had been laughing this entire time, suddenly looked uncomfortable. Something had changed. The power dynamic had just shifted. And Jordan? She was in control now. The man, still standing too close, tried to play it off. "What? You gonna cry now?" he sneered, forcing a smirk. His voice wasn't as strong as before. Jordan just stared at him, her navy blue eyes locked onto his like a predator sizing up prey. Then, she took a slow step forward. The man instinctively took a step back. A nervous chuckle escaped one of his friends. Bro? Maybe we should just leave it." But the guy wasn't done embarrassing himself. "What, you think you're tough?" he scoffed, crossing his arms to hide the way his hands were twitching. "This isn't the military, sweetheart. You're in the real world now." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want to test that theory?" The way she said it so calm, so certain, made the hair on his arms stand up. But he had already committed. His pride was on the line. So instead of backing down like any smart person would, he took another step forward. This time, he poked her shoulder. And that was the moment she decided to end this. Jordan moved so fast that no one saw it coming. In one swift motion, she grabbed his wrist, twisted it, and yanked him forward. His body reacted before his brain could catch up. His knees buckled, and he dropped to the ground hard. The gym erupted in gasps. 1 second, he had been standing tall, mocking her. The next, he was on his knees, his arm twisted behind his back in an iron grip. Jordan leaned in slightly, her voice calm, deadly. "Still think I'm weak?" The guy gritted his teeth, trying to struggle, but the more he fought, the more pressure she applied. His friends didn't know what to do. They just stood there, eyes wide, shocked beyond belief. Jordan looked up at them, still holding their friend in place. "Any of you want to give it a try?" No one moved. No one even breathed. They were terrified. And Jordan? She hadn't even broken a sweat. She could have ended it there. She could have let him go and walked away. But something told her he hadn't learned his lesson yet. So she leaned in and whispered, just loud enough for only him to hear, "I could break your arm right now, and there's nothing you could do to stop me." His breathing hitched. "But I won't. Because unlike you, I know how to control my strength." She let go abruptly, and the guy stumbled forward, catching himself on his hands. The gym was completely silent as he pushed himself up, his face flushed with humiliation. He looked around, seeing all the eyes on him, not with admiration, not with respect, with pity, and that was worse than any punch she could have thrown. Jordan adjusted her hoodie and turned to leave. But then, you're crazy, the guy sputtered. She stopped, turning back. Excuse me? He pointed at her, trying to regain control of the situation. You're a psycho, a freak. This isn't the military. No one cares who you were before. Jordan tilted her head, as if she was considering something. Then she stepped forward again. The guy immediately backed up. You're right, she said, her voice low and controlled. This isn't the military. She took another step, and he flinched. And that is the only reason you're still standing. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. She let the silence hang for a second. Then, she smirked. Now get out of my way. And this time, he did. The gym's reaction. As she walked toward the exit, the gym came back to life. Trainers, gym goers, even the staff whispered among themselves. Some were stunned. Some were impressed. But everyone had just learned something. Jordan Hayes wasn't someone to mess with. She wasn't just a woman in the gym. She wasn't just strong. She was a trained warrior. And she had just reminded everyone in that room exactly what that meant. The Bullies never returned. After that day, the Bullies never came back to that gym. Maybe they went somewhere else. Maybe they quit working out altogether. Maybe they just couldn't stand the idea of walking into that gym and remembering what happened. But Jordan, she never stopped coming. She never stopped training. Because while they were busy trying to prove something to the world, she had nothing to prove. She was already stronger than all of them. And now, they knew it too. 5. The climax expanded. 700 words. The gym was still buzzing long after Jordan walked away. Whispers. Stares. People who had been too afraid to step in now looked at her with something different. Respect. Even admiration. She had done what no one else had dared to do. She had shut them down completely. But for Jordan, it wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about the whispers, the stares, or the newfound admiration. It was about teaching a lesson. And from the way the gym bullies stood there, stunned, humiliated, and shaken, she knew the lesson had been learned. But one question remained. Had they learned enough? A final attempt at redemption or revenge? Jordan had almost forgotten about them by the time she reached her locker. She placed her water bottle inside, grabbed her gym bag, and took a deep breath. That should have been the end of it. Except, the man she humiliated wasn't done yet. She heard the footsteps approaching before she turned. The same guy the arrogant, red-faced Jim Bra stood there, fists clenched, his entire posture radiating anger. But now, there was no smirk, no confidence, only rage. You think you're some kind of badass? He growled, his voice low. Jordan didn't flinch. No, she said simply. I just don't tolerate idiots. That made him snap. His fists clenched tighter, and for a moment, just a second, actually looked like he might be stupid enough to throw a punch. Jordan tilted her head. Go ahead. The man hesitated. What? Hit me. She took a step closer. You already put your hands on me once. Why stop now? Silence. His fingers twitched, his jaw tightened, but his feet, they didn't move. Because deep down, he knew if he threw that punch, she would destroy him. Not just physically, completely. His breath came out in short, angry bursts. I should call the cops, he muttered. Jordan raised an eyebrow. For what? Losing? A voice suddenly cut through the tension. Hey, everything okay here? Jordan turned to see one of the gym trainers standing by the doorway. Other members lingered nearby, pretending not to watch, but it was obvious everyone was paying attention. Even the gym manager, a tall, serious-looking woman, had stepped forward. And at that moment, the man realized something. This wasn't just between him and Jordan anymore. Everyone had seen him lose. And if he tried anything else, he'd lose again. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "This place is a joke," he muttered. Then, without another word, he grabbed his bag and stormed out. Jordan watched him go, her arms still crossed, her expression unreadable. The gym trainer let out a small chuckle. "That was wild. You okay?" Jordan nodded. "Never better." And with that, she grabbed her things, threw her hoodie over her head, and walked out completely unfazed. Because for her, this wasn't a fight. It was just another workout. And she had won again. 6. The aftermath. The ripple effect of strength. 700 words. By the time Jordan stepped out of the gym, the buzz hadn't died down. People were still talking. Some whispered in awe. Others exchanged knowing glances. A few even smirked as they watched the defeated bully storm out into the parking lot. His shoulders slumped in humiliation. But for Jordan, it was just another day. She wasn't looking for recognition. She wasn't looking for applause. She just wanted to train in peace. But something unexpected happened after that day. The next time Jordan walked into the gym, something had changed. The usual stares, gone. The lingering sense of judgment from the regulars disappeared. Instead, people nodded at her in quiet respect. Even the staff, who usually kept their distance, greeted her warmly. The same trainer who had stepped in during the confrontation even walked over. "Hey, Jordan," he said with a grin. "So, been meaning to ask? You ever thought about coaching?" Jordan paused mid-stretch. "Coaching?" "Yeah," he shrugged. "A lot of the women here have been asking if you do personal training. You kind of inspired some people." Jordan raised an eyebrow. She wasn't used to being a role model. She had always kept to herself, training alone, focusing on her own strength. But now, people were looking up to her. And for the first time, she realized she could do more than just train. She could teach. As for the bullies, they never returned. Maybe they found another gym. Maybe they were too embarrassed to show their faces again. Or maybe, just maybe, they had finally learned their lesson. Either way, Jordan never gave them another thought. She had bigger things to focus on. Over the next few months, Jordan slowly became more than just another gym member. She started helping women who were nervous about weight training. She gave advice to newcomers who had been too afraid to ask before. She became a quiet protector, an unspoken leader. And before she knew it, she wasn't just working out. She was changing lives. One rep at a time. One lesson at a time. One act of strength at a time. Because at the end of the day, strength wasn't just about lifting weights. It was about standing up. For yourself. For others. For what was right. And as Jordan Hayes walked into that gym each day, she knew one thing for sure. She would never stop standing up. For herself. For every woman who had ever been underestimated. And for every person who needed to be reminded, true strength comes from within. And no one could take that away from her. Strength isn't just about muscle sits, about standing tall when others try to bring you down. If you believe in the power of resilience, hit that subscribe button for more stories of strength and justice.